All right, next, picture this. You're providing care for a family member or friend so they can stay in your home longer. Well, they're well cared for, but what about you? Who relieves you when you need a break? Now, this is the plight of many caregivers, and my next guest is going to be your new best friend. She is going to offer some hope to family caregivers. Janet Altman of South Carolina Respite Coalition. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Koko. Good to be here.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
And we're excited to talk about respite care, something a lot of people don't know about. So first, if you would talk about respite care.
Super. There are so many family caregivers in the state of South Carolina, like 770,000 people we know of who are taking care of an aging parent. It's a lot of people. Then you have the family caregivers who have a child born with a disability of some sort of special need. They're caring for them. Their role is more than being a parent. It's more than being a child. You have become the family caregiver for this individual. And if you do not take care of yourself as the family caregiver, you will not be able to take care of them long term. So we want people to understand that respite, R-E-S-P-I-T-E, respite, is so important for family caregivers. It has to be part of their thinking, part of their planning, part of their goals to involve other people in the care of their loved one, so there is someone to give them a break, give them respite, a short-term break, routinely.
All right. And interestingly enough, these family caregivers are not paid to
That's
do
exactly
that.
right. We're talking about millions of unpaid hours of care, good care in your own home for your loved one, because you want them to stay with you. You want to keep them with you because you believe, as we believe, the best care they're going to get is from you, their family member. That's who's going to care the most. That's who's going to do the best job. But it's a taxing, draining job to be on call 24/7 in your own home to care for someone else.
If you could put a dollar amount on how much it would cost to care for someone in the home, give us a ballpark figure.
I know it's in the millions of dollars per year in South Carolina.
Wow.
I know that. Millions of dollars. If we were paying those family caregivers even minimum wage, it would be millions of dollars. And many folks leave their professional careers to stay at home with someone. Therefore, that is lost income for them. Our economy loses that money that they're no longer earning and no longer spending. So the unpaid family caregiver impacts us in many, many ways.
Right. And I don't think people understand that with a family caregiver, that person sometimes becomes isolated.
Absolutely.
Is not able to go out because they're caring for that person in the home. And so when they get secluded like that, there's no, you can talk about some of the repercussions that family members may get.
Absolutely. What we see is isolation comes, depression follows, and they give up. And I have talked to many, many families in the past year who are caring for someone in the home, and they will say to me, Janet, I have not been to church in 6 months. I have not been out of this house in a year. I have not been able to go get my hair done in a year. I do not go to our other family members' funerals. I don't go to weddings. I don't go. I am the primary caregiver and I love this person and it is important to me, but I have given up certain things to be the primary caregiver.
And thinking about the age range, sometimes the caregiver can be in their 20s.
Absolutely.
And making that kind of sacrifice.
It's a huge impact. And we try to tell families, it's okay to think about yourself. It's a good thing. It's proactive to think about yourself, to make a plan. I heard a sad story recently of a young man who had an intellectual disability, and he was in a school in our area, public school, in a special needs classroom, and his mother had just chosen not to let anyone into her son's care. She just chose to be the one. That was her choice. There were no grandparents involved, no siblings, nothing. She suddenly had a massive heart attack one day when she was at work.
Oh, dear.
So the morning that she brought him to school, life was good. Afternoon, they had to say, he's saying, where's my mother? How do you tell someone? And there was no one that knew his routine, his medications, his doctor's appointments, his little idiosyncrasies, things he likes, what kind of music he likes, and what time he likes to get his shower, and all that. No one knew those things. And we tell people, don't let that be you. Include people in your loved one's care. Open your arms wide and say, I'm looking for some help here, and be willing to accept that help, whatever form, so that you can create this circle of support around yourself that in fact benefits you, but also in fact benefits them to have other people in their lives.
Okay, in that instance that you just spoke about, that woman had other people in the family, but she designated herself and herself only. But then there's also that group of people where there are people, but they don't want to help.
That's true.
Family members, friends, they just look away, and then that person is alone. So
absolutely. I've talked to many families where there were 2 or 3 children in a family, but one becomes the primary caregiver. It's really unusual. I've worked with probably well over 1,000 families who live in the Midlands of South Carolina in the last 15 years, more than 1,000 families. And that's a consistent thing that I see. You say, who helps you with your dad? Mm-hmm. Well, I have a brother, but he's in California. I have a sister. She's in Charleston. She has 2 young children. Just me. Mm-hmm. You ask them that question, who helps you with your son? Well, et cetera, et cetera. And you realize that for whatever reason, it's just the way it flows. There's one person that rises up and says, I will do this. And that families would say together, how can we help you? What part can we play? Maybe we can't come every day. Maybe we can't come every week. Well, how can we help you? Can we take over some aspect of her care, his care, that would help you, whatever that might be? There's got to be a plan in place.
Right. So this is why it's good to have an awareness day, not only to enlighten caregivers, but people who know a caregiver so that they will open their eyes to see the need that's out there.
Absolutely.
And I don't think some people understand the significance of having dollars in our state designated for respite care. So talk to our listeners exactly what that means.
We've been fortunate. There have been a lot of voices in our state that have said this is important. Family caregivers need our support. They need our help in this regard, respite. And several years ago, when Glenn McConnell was here in office, he started the ball rolling, and others have followed as well, to say we need money earmarked for respite, that we can give out vouchers to family caregivers who apply to us, and we give them a voucher, and they can say, I have this amount of money I can spend now. Up to, it's like a credit limit. You say you have $500 allocated to you. How would you use that money to get a break? And they tell us, and they do it, and that's how it works. And I think that there are many states in our country who do not have that much money at the state level. As a matter of fact, we're probably in a minority. We have a lot of money at the state level for respite. There's also federal dollars that come into our state and for respite, specifically for respite. And so we're one of, I think, of 23 states who've received some of that money. Once again, we're in a small group there out of 50 states that have received that money. So it's not enough, but it's something, and it's better in this state than in others.
Yes, it is better than nothing.
We're good with it, and we're just part of our Respite Awareness Day will be to say to these gentlemen and ladies, thank you, and keep it there, and increase it as you're able, because it's important. This is not going to go away. It's going to be an ongoing need for family caregivers to get a break.
Yes. Again, the South Carolina Respite Coalition, you guys help so many families take care of family members. Now, tell us a little bit about how a family member can come to you and what services you provide.
We have a website, screspitecoalition.org, and there's some information, our phone numbers there and that sort of thing. They would call us and say, I live in the home with my mother, my father, my child, my brother, whatever. I am their family caregiver primarily, 24/7. I do not work outside the home. Or they might say, I do work outside the home. That would be 2 possible scenarios. We would ask them, do they have regular breaks? And they say, no. And we say, are there people that you know from your community, from your church, from your family, from whatever, that you think really love your family member, are comfortable with your family member, and your family member in turn is comfortable with them? Because, you can't just have someone come to your house.
Right.
It's got to be a fit.
Very good fit.
It's got to be a fit. It's got to be mutual. It's got to, the care receiver has to feel comfortable, and the caregiver has to be comfortable, and the person you bring in has to be comfortable. This is a good thing. We find a lot of young families who have children who are in the school system. They're under 18, so they're in special needs classes perhaps. And there's a school bus driver, or there's a cafeteria worker, or there's a teacher assistant that just loves. There's a bond there. What better thing to do than to invite that person to your house on a Saturday to hang out a little bit and kind of see how that works outside the classroom, outside the school, and then say, I have to go to Charleston next Saturday for a half day with my other child. Any chance I could hire you to come and stay with Johnny while I go? And they go like, sure, I can do that. It's a Saturday. So then you might use our respite voucher to pay them. Mm-hmm. You might say, I can pay you $10 an hour. And if you can come for 8 hours, I'll owe you $80. And they would explain this is a reimbursement program. So you would do the hours. I would turn a timesheet to the Respite Coalition. They would send me a check sometime later, and I would pay you. And the teacher assistant says, sure, I can do that. Glad to do it. I wouldn't mind making $80. I love your son. No problem. So that happens in other scenarios. You're a parent. The parent needs a peer, someone they want to be with to give you a break. Same arrangement. You can use the voucher to secure them to agree to do it, and then they're reimbursed. We reimburse you, and you pay them after the fact. So it's definitely a reimbursement program because the state dollars are not in our possession. We commit them in vouchers. People spend it and ask for their money back, and then we give it back in checks through the mail.
Okay. So. Now, talk to us about the different types of respite, because I know the one that people think of the most is where someone comes in the home. Mm-hmm.
There are a few what we call day programs, adult day programs that serve our aging population, and it's possible to use a voucher to pay for that. Most day programs I'm aware of charge $30 to $40 a day to drop mama or daddy off at 8 and pick them up at 4 or 9 to 5, different hours, but you typically $34 a day. So if you had a $500 voucher, that's going to cover about 10, 12 days, Okay. And you might decide that you would pick one day a week for 12 weeks and just know that on that day of the week, they're going to go and spend the day at the day program instead of being at home. And that gets them out of the home into other relationships, having a little bit of stimulation. And when people are busy during the day, they sleep better at night. And if they sleep better at night, the caregiver will sleep better at night. Mm-hmm. And so I think that taking someone to a day program, or some children go to camps. There's special camps in the summertime for those with special needs. And sometimes people use the voucher toward the cost of that week of camp. It might not pay for the whole thing, but it could pay for part of it. One thing we do say with our vouchers is that you shouldn't be using this money to pay someone to stay with your loved one while you're at work. Our focus is the family caregiver. Okay. We want them to have a total break, not just a break from the caregiving, but a break from everything so they can take care of themselves. So our funds are clearly stated, if you're working full time, super. Use this money for a weekend trip somewhere.
Wow.
Don't use it when you are going to be at work. We want this. Our customer is the family caregiver. Oftentimes people they call and say, my son's 22. He needs respite. And so we probe a little bit closer. Your son is 22. Why does he need respite? Well, he had a car accident 2 years ago, and he hurt his back really bad. Now he's disabled, and he needs respite. I said, well, actually, in our mind, if you're the family caregiver, the primary person that takes care of him, you're the one who needs the break. Because people often assign the word respite to the care receiver. Mm-hmm. In our minds, it's totally the family caregiver. You are the one who is giving of yourself unconditionally, 24/7, on call. You need the break. The care receiver, yes, needs supervision, companionship, someone to be with them, to make sure they're safe, of course. But the word respite applies to the family caregiver, not to the care receiver.
Right. Now, you spoke about a circle of support.
Yes.
And can you go into a little detail what that would look like in terms of the family caregiver?
I had a conversation with a lady, and she was telling me, Jana, I need someone to be in my mom's life besides me. I just so need that. And I pulled my little circle of support diagram out, and I said, let's think about this. Who do you know at your church that knows your mother and loves your mother? She said, well, I can think of a few people there that love Mama at the church and she loves. Who do you know in your neighborhood, a neighbor, long-term neighbor that knows your mother? Well, I can think of a few of those. Who do you think your mother would be most comfortable coming into your house and staying with her as her friend, just visiting with her while you're gone for a doctor's appointment or out to lunch with a friend? She said, well, that kind of lowers the number because they love Mama, but she'd probably say, what are they doing here? Why are they in my house? And it's really too hard to explain. Mm-hmm. I said, dig a little deeper. Who else have you encountered in the last 6 months that your mother clicked with? And she said, I had a physical therapist that came to my house after I had my knee surgery. And she came to visit me after from home health. And she was there to see me to make sure I was doing my exercise with my knee to get it rehabbed and everything. And my mother, every time she would leave, my mother would say, who was that? And I'd say, that's so-and-so and so-and-so. And she'd say, I like her. And she said, now that you pointed out, that happened like every time. She'd say, who was that? And I'd tell her name. And while I was here, I'd tell her because she would forget. She had memory loss. You know, the lady had memory loss. She didn't remember who the person was, but she liked her every time she came. And I said, my thought is, do you have her number? Oh, yeah, I have a business card that they gave me when they did that. I think you should call her, have her over for lunch, or have her meet you somewhere for lunch and just see. And I think you should build a relationship with that person and let them become your respite provider. And she said, that is a great idea. I wish I'd talked to you 6 months ago. I said, me too. And she said, and then she kept saying, now my mother is here today. She kept looking over her shoulder. I hope she didn't know what we're talking about. Oh, I'm sure she doesn't. So she was very conscious of her respecting her mother's feelings, respecting her mother's perspective. She would never have spoken like that in front of her mother. But she was saying from a deep, deep heart, I've got to find somebody to help me in this role. I need a break, and it's got to be the right person.
Can you use that money for a family member? Suppose you have to pay a family member to do it.
Yes, you can. We prefer that you not, but it's certainly not part of it. You certainly can do that. There are some people, I've seen people that got the voucher. They had a family member who lived out of state. The person who lived out of state said, if you will buy my plane ticket from Ohio to Columbia, I will stay with her or him for a week, and you can have a week of vacation. You can go wherever you want to go. And so that voucher in that case didn't pay an hourly wage for 4 or 5 hours. It paid for a plane ticket. That was what made it possible for that person to get respite. So we have to be creative with that, and you report that to us. You say, I'm going to use this money to pay a plane ticket for my nephew, Fred, to fly from Ohio to Columbia, and he's going to stay with the brother or whatever it is for a week. And then we said, perfectly fine.
Wow.
We want the family caregiver to use those funds to create for themselves a break. That's what we want.
Awesome.
That's what we want.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
How can people help your organization? Again, the South Carolina Respite Coalition. How can people help?
We need funding. The funding that we have from the state goes to the families. We can always use donations. We're wanting to expand our network. Our dream is to create a network across this entire state where in any given county, on any given day of the week, someone could call and say, this is who I am. This is the person for whom I give care. I need some respite resources. And we could say, call here. They've got a day program. Call here. They've got folks that you can hire. They've been screened and trained. That's our goal, is to network. And that takes money and time to travel the state. So give us a few dollars. We would be grateful for that.
All right. Again, it's Janet Altman from the South Carolina Respite Coalition. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you for having me.